and the ventral tegmental area are the two areas that trade this dopamine back and forth to give us this survival message. Now they're tied in with other areas of the brain that also, aside from higher learning, higher function, are connected to a memory, experience, and emotion. So addiction deals with the midbrain, that section of the brain that only is concerned with the next 30 seconds, not the cerebellum or the cortex, but here in the brain stem and the midbrain. It's a vegetative, primitive survival center. Therefore, I'm telling you that the area where addiction operates is unconscious. And I'm going to tell you that your breathing is unconscious until when? Until I told you to hold your breath. And then you were thinking about nothing else. About nothing else. So there's no free will involved here. Now, I always tell the families, you know, okay, here's a shill for the Betty Ford Center, standing up there to get our addicts and alcoholics off the hook for all their bad behavior. It's not their fault, you know, all that stuff. But the truth of the matter is that we're not discounting the behaviors that anyone does. This is a bad disease that makes good people do bad things. And part of our program is making the amends necessary to correct life's course. That's the tools we give people through the 12 steps to make amends for actions for which they are entirely responsible. Okay? In each and everyone's individual circumstance, we encourage that kind of accountability. But free will is not involved as far as addiction goes. Yes, there was a point at which we all had a choice. Those of you who may not identify as alcoholics or addicts may have the same choices that I had when I was 14 or 15. Here, smoke this. Just take a sip of this. Oh, let me just try. I want to just try this. And we made those choices. Now, as Dr. West likes to say, for those of us with the right genetic component, the metaphorical switch can be switched at that time in those brains that are addicted brains. They may not be manifested until 19, 20, 25, 35 years. One lady I saw today was 46 years old, or some gentlemen we have over at RDT who are stating that it didn't happen until they retired. Okay? Episodically, they'd probably feel that they were losing control, but the disease didn't manifest itself till then. Now, we can manipulate brain chemistry, you know, and create our little addicts in the classic experiment with the rat. You're all familiar with the cocaine rat who hits the lever, you know, like, okay, rat, try this. There's your cocaine. Whoa. This is a great rat day, isn't it? Feel that cocaine running through, and he's off and running, and he does it over, and I think I'll do that again. And he keeps hitting that lever and keeping that. Finally, someone comes up and says, hey, little rat, you want to survive, don't you? Rat says, yes, I do. Keeps hitting the lever. So a little rat, why don't you have like a drink of water? Cocaine. Don't you want a little something to eat? Here's some little rat food. Cocaine. You see that cute little girly rat in the corner of the cage? Would you like to make cocaine? Hey rat, you're going to live or you're going to die. You need to take another breath. Wouldn't you rather have another breath than cocaine? And they'll die. And they've used, despite adverse consequences and pain, they're standing on an electrified grid, you know, enduring pain in their paws to keep this behavior up. Something was created in them to keep this coming up, and this is craving. Now, we love Carl Jung because he's the guy that told us that, you know, man's great dilemma is to rise to the top of Maslow's pyramid and achieve wholeness, oneness, you know, unity. Where did you get it? Some people get it from their children and from their job and from their church and, you know, from their art, and they achieve that sense of wholeness from a relationship. It can come from other places. But if you've got the addiction component, and this substance, your drug of choice, comes into your life, when this search for wholeness is going on and it fills the void, that's when the switch gets thrown. And from then on, the game is changed. You are going to try to reproduce that feeling of wholeness over and over and over again, and it's fired biochemically by dopamine. Now, much of what I've told you about appears in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. They knew it empirically. In 1939, all we're telling you is the facts have caught up with the evidence that they had, which was really life stories and experience. The facts are now biochemical, and with nuclear imaging and MRIs and CAT scans, we're finding that, wow, there's an explanation for this persistent use despite adverse consequences, loss of control and craving. We're finding it over and over again. And most importantly, we're finding that many people who have this disease aren't using it for hedonistic purposes and to get high. That happens early on, or it happens to people who don't have the disease. People who get into this disease and start to build their tolerance, how often do you hear that they're using to feel normal? Did you get high when I said, okay, breathe? No, you didn't get high. There might have been a little euphoria, but you really knew that you were satisfying a need, okay? That you were doing it to feel normal. My normal state is to maintain a certain level. And it's not just an addiction. Think about someone with lung disease. Can you imagine if you had a lung condition that felt like you were breathing through a sip straw, those little tiny stir sticks that they use in drinks, like emphysema feels that way, or asthma? Then if I told you to hold your breath and take a breath, you wouldn't have been satisfied, not without supplemental oxygen. You would have needed something to boost it. Okay? So you see how this is fitting a disease model? Now, we know that the common pathway of dopamine from the nucleus accumbens and the ventral tegmental area is well established, but what we're finding is that all drugs have other gateways in order to get in here. Your opioids, ethanol, benzodiazepines, using different neurotransmitters, your nicotine and barbiturates, cocaine, amphetamines, they're all coming in to this system by different pathways with the same result. And the same result is the release of dopamine. So what is the cause of addiction? Now, when I tell this in family, people cringe. The cause of addiction is written up there. It's stress. Well, wait a minute. Now, I live a stressful life. Just living with an addict is a stressful life. What do you mean? What are you talking about? That I get stressed all the time, and your mother didn't get stressed when I used to walk to school in snow this deep. You know what I'm talking about. People don't read. Okay, I didn't say good stress or bad stress. All I said was stress. And stress releases cortisol from your adrenal glands. And this chemical cortisol does something to the dopamine mechanism that causes the dysfunction that we're talking about. Good stress or bad stress? I win the lottery, I get cortisol. I get a letter from the IRS, I get cortisol. Okay? I go to your wedding, I'm stressed. I get cortisol. I go to my wedding, I'm really stressed, and I get cortisol. I go to your funeral, I get cortisol. Some events are happy, some events are sad. They're all stressful. Abundant